Volunteers continued to enter Spain. Few were prepared for war.
Actually, first of all, what we have about the Abraham Lincoln Brigade is it's the first ever fully integrated American military unit. Now, it's not actually with the U.S. Armed Forces, but it is an American military unit. So it's the first integrated one ever. And eventually, Oliver Law becomes the commander of the battalion. And he is the first ever African American to lead a majority white battalion, military unit. So that's a pretty huge accomplishment, and it happened during the Spanish Civil War. So some of the African Americans come home, even the woman in the video say they come home and they're used to 3 years or a little less of being able to walk into cafes, of being able to fraternize with people of all colors and get used to this and then go home to absolute segregation. But what I want to ask first, just to make sure we all have sort of the groundwork laid, is what would motivate African Americans in the first place to join the Communist Party? And you guys, we've been sort of covering that all week a little bit, but let's just sort of nail it today. One, and the disillusionment that occurred with it amongst everybody, particularly African Americans. All of this led to a particular restiveness. People were agitated, people were volunteering, people were protesting, people were striking. Restiveness. Okay, this is really crucial. So yeah, what I want to do is keep it international right now, which you guys are doing a good job of, but not just the Abraham Lincoln Brigade, but people who Italians joined, right? Germans joined, people that are coming from states that have since been taken over by the fascists. So they are watching it at home, and there's nothing they can do anymore in Italy. There's nothing they can do anymore in Germany. Where is the Popular Front now, right? The Popular Front is in Spain. A lot of people really associated fascism, correctly so, with white supremacy, right? And so you see different groups, there's some interesting interviews with Irish people that signed up. You see different groups saying, I signed up because I understood that fascism equaled anti-Semitism, it equaled Irishism, anti-Irishism, it equaled the Jim Crow rule in the South. And people understood the links between these two and really thought of it as sort of a global fight against these forces. Priyanka. And I've been sort of building up to this all week, right? Is that in 1928, the Comintern starts a black belt policy. And it says, much like the Irish in Ireland, much like different ethnic nationalities sort of in the Soviet Union, the African Americans of the American South constitute an oppressed nationality, and that it's called the black belt. And so that's a big deal to, like Izzy was saying and like Tori was saying, to try to encourage people to join. They are recognized as such. So what happens is the NAACP says this issue is too contentious. We're not going to support these guys. We're not going to help out. And so the CPUSA takes on the case. And they provide legal support. And it actually makes for a really good documentary. You guys should all check it out. It's, I forget what it's called, but it's a PBS documentary. And it makes for sort of high drama because what you have is from 1931 to 1937, a series of trials in which the Communist Party is supporting with legal representation these 9 boys, these 9 young men. And the lawyer they bring in is sort of this kind of big deal defense attorney from New York who usually defends mobsters. So he's this Jewish guy in the South defending 9 African Americans with this crazy history of defending mobsters and all that. And it becomes really high stakes drama in the courtroom. So it makes for a really good documentary. But what you see is that the world watches. Very much like the Sacco and Vanzetti article. The world is watching. And all over the world, there are protests in support of these young men. All over the world, it looks like the American South, Jim Crow segregation, Jim Crow justice is on trial. These guys then engaged in things. Communism became a bigger threat to the U.S. than fascism. What happens during the Cold War? Communism becomes the enemy, right? If communism's the enemy in the Cold War, all these guys who were fighting with the international brigades organized by the communist parties of France, of the United States, of England, their history is not legitimate anymore. In fact, they become, subject to prosecution by different McCarthyite kind of institutions. So that's crucial, and that's what Marshall brought up and what Amanda highlights. The other thing that I want to point out is the Abraham Lincoln Brigade fought fascism before the U.S. government was willing to do that, right? In fact, a lot of them said I joined because the U.S. government said they wouldn't. So it's this idea of your timeliness was off. The U.S. government was refusing to support in any way this democratically elected republic, and so they fought the battle that the U.S. government was unwilling to fight. And so that history often, you can see why that would be neglected. Okay,